Okay, so we all see the headlines, right? Our planet's forests are in trouble. But what if I told you the main reasons why aren't what you probably think they are? What if the real culprits are hiding in plain sight? You know, in your online shopping cart, your so-called green energy, maybe even the shirt you're wearing right now. Let's dig in and uncover the surprisingly hidden forces behind this relentless demand for wood.
So let's start with a number, 10 million hectares. That's how much forest we lose. And that's not over a decade, that's every single year. To put that in perspective, that's like wiping out an area the size of Iceland year after year after year. It's just a staggering figure. And look, this isn't just some abstract statistic, it's a full-blown crisis. But if we're ever gonna solve it, we first have to understand what's really behind it.
Now we know what's happening. And for a long time, the why seems simple. It was all about clearing land for farms. And yeah, agriculture still plays a big role, for sure. But what's different now, in the 21st century, is this whole new set of economic forces that are cranking up the pressure like never before. And that's what this explainer is all about. We're going to pull back the curtain on these powerful and, frankly, pretty surprising modern demands. All right, let's zoom out for a second and just set the stage. The global appetite for wood fiber, it's unbelievable. And it's only growing. You know, it's one of those basic building blocks of our entire globalized economy. But that reliance, it comes with a huge, huge ecological price tag. The pressures are building, so understanding exactly where they're coming from is, well, it's step one. So we're going to focus in on 3 key demands that make up what you might call our hidden wood economy. And trust me, these probably aren't the ones that first come to mind. But together, they make up a massive, massive slice of the pie when it comes to global demand for wood. Okay, just take a look at this. Where does it all go? You might expect construction to be the biggest chunk, right? But look at that massive slice for packaging. I mean, wow, that's basically all our online shopping. And look what's right behind it, bioenergy and textiles. This really shows that it's not just about 2x4s for houses anymore. It's woven into the very fabric of our modern consumer lives. So let's talk about that biggest slice first, the cardboard box boom. It's kind of wild to think about, but every single time you click Buy Now online, you're directly tapping into this economy. The absolute explosion of e-commerce has created this parallel explosion in the demand for cardboard boxes. And where does cardboard come from? Yep, wood pulp. And if you want to know why this is happening, well, here you go. We're talking about a global pulp and paper market that's projected to be worth over $700 billion. That is a colossal amount of money. It's a massive economic engine that creates this incredible pull on forest resources, all to make the millions and millions of boxes that show up on our doorsteps every day. All right, next up is a driver that I think will surprise a lot of you. This huge thirst for so-called green energy. See, to meet renewable energy goals, a lot of countries are now burning wood pellets to generate electricity. The logic is that it's carbon neutral. You burn a tree, you plant a tree, and the new tree absorbs the carbon. But what this has actually done is create an absolutely voracious global appetite for wood. And this isn't just a local thing. It's created a massive global conveyor belt for wood. You have entire forests, like those in parts of North America, being harvested, ground down into tiny pellets, and then shipped all the way across the Atlantic Ocean just to be burned in European power plants. It's a really complex supply chain, and it raises some pretty serious ecological questions. And the third one? Well, it's everywhere, from your t-shirt to your tissues. A lot of those soft, silky fabrics we love, things like viscose or lyocell, guess what? They're made from wood pulp. Then you add in the constant, never-ending global demand for stuff like paper towels and tissues, and you've got another huge and mostly invisible driver of deforestation. So that's the demand side. But how does a tree in, say, Brazil end up as a t-shirt in Europe or a box in North America? Well, it all happens through this incredibly complex, incredibly efficient global conveyor belt that's just constantly moving wood fiber around the planet. And that journey basically has 4 main stages. First, you've got the source. Often, these are huge planted forests, which are becoming more and more important for industrial supply. Then you've got the heavy-duty industrial processing, turning logs into pulp or pellets. Stage 3 is the global trade, the shipping containers and cargo holds. And finally, stage 4, it gets turned into the final product that we all use. And of course, this whole supply chain looks really different depending on where you are in the world. In Southeast Asia, for instance, a major concern is the risk of unsustainable practices in the pulp and paper industry.
Meanwhile, in Brazil, a huge producer of eucalyptus, they're using satellites to keep an eye on deforestation. And then you have North America, where the whole market can swing wildly based on the price of softwood lumber. Every region has its own piece of the puzzle and its own challenges.
Okay, so this relentless global demand, it obviously doesn't come for free. There's a huge cost. And we're not just talking about losing individual trees here. We are pushing entire massive ecosystems towards a point of no return. And that ecological price tag, it's becoming alarmingly, frighteningly clear. This quote right here, it really gets to the heart of the risk we're facing. It talks about how complex systems can just switch states abruptly. A tipping point isn't this slow, graceful decline. It's more like a sudden, catastrophic shift. You can push and push and push on a system, and it seems fine, until all at once it just breaks. And often, it's impossible to fix.
So let's be super clear about what we mean by an ecological tipping point. This is the moment a rainforest gets so degraded it can't make its own rain anymore, and it just collapses into a dry savanna. It's when a coral reef suddenly bleaches and dies. It is a fundamental and often irreversible change. And the scary part is, the fear is that some of our planet's most important forests are getting dangerously close to these thresholds right now.
And here's something that is absolutely crucial to get. Not all forests are the same. A tree is not just a tree. A lot of this industrial demand is met by what are called planted forests. But a neat grid of identical pine trees is not, I repeat, not an ecological replacement for a real, complex, natural forest. It's a monoculture, it doesn't support nearly the same biodiversity, it doesn't store as much carbon, and it's way more vulnerable to disease and fire. They are just not the same thing. So really, this all boils down to a fundamental conflict, a question of value. Our global economy is incredibly good at one thing: putting a price on a log of wood. But what it has always been terrible at is recognizing the true worth of a living, breathing forest.
Now, the good news is that's slowly starting to change. People are waking up to the scale of the problem. And in response, we're seeing this whole new ecosystem of policies and financial tools starting to pop up, all designed to try and fix this huge market failure.
For example, you've got things like the EU's new deforestation regulation. This basically forces companies to prove their supply chains aren't contributing to the problem. We're also seeing the growth of carbon markets with programs like REDD+, which create financial incentives to keep forests standing. And then there's a big push in the financial world itself with things like ESG, that's environmental, social, and governance investing, and green bonds that are specifically aimed at sustainable forestry. These are all serious attempts to try and rewire the whole system. And so that leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? Our economy has a very clear price for wood, for pulp, for paper. But what is the value of a forest? What's the value of all the biodiversity it holds, the clean air it gives us, the stable climate it helps maintain?